It was a typical Friday night, and the house was quiet, except for me and my boyfriend Ryan. My dad had gone on a business trip, and my stepmom, Melissa, was supposed to be away for the weekend. Having the whole place to ourselves was exciting. Ryan and I had been together for a while, and each moment we shared felt thrilling and fresh. This rare chance to be completely free with each other, without the fear of anyone walking in, made the evening even more special. We were lounging on the couch, a movie playing in the background, but before long, our attention shifted entirely onto each other. We cuddled closer, our hands wandering, the movie now just white noise as our focus turned to the connection between us. There was an undeniable thrill in knowing the house was ours, and we couldn't resist it. Things escalated quickly, and soon we were completely lost in the heat of the moment, kissing deeply and feeling the intensity of being alone. Ryan's hands moved over my body, and my heart raced. Excitement, danger, and the thrill of the situation heightened everything. But then, out of nowhere, the front door creaked open. My stomach dropped, and we quickly pulled apart, but it was too late. There, standing in the doorway, was Melissa, my stepmom, looking directly at us. Panic surged through me. She wasn't supposed to be back this early. What was she doing here? For a few moments, the room felt frozen in time, and I couldn't decipher the expression on her face. She was taking in the sight of us, caught in such an intimate moment. I braced myself, expecting her to explode in anger, scold us for our lack of boundaries, or for disrespecting the house. But none of that happened. Instead, she quietly shut the door behind her and stepped further into the room. My breath caught in my throat. What was she going to do? To my utter shock, Melissa didn't seem upset at all. In fact, her expression was strangely calm, almost curious. She sat down in the chair across from us, her eyes never leaving mine. The air was thick with tension, and I didn't know how to react. My face burned with embarrassment, but her composed demeanor was unsettling. "Looks like you two were having some fun," she said casually, her voice even and steady, not at all the response I had been expecting. Ryan and I exchanged a nervous glance, neither of us knowing what to say. I tried to muster an apology, but the words wouldn't come. Melissa leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs, her gaze still locked on me. "Don't worry," she continued, her tone taking on a playful edge. "I'm not mad. Actually, I'm kind of impressed." Impressed? My face flushed even more, and I didn't know how to respond. What did she mean by that? Ryan shifted uncomfortably next to me, clearly as bewildered as I was. Melissa's eyes drifted between us, her expression unreadable but full of something that made me uneasy. Yet, at the same time, there was a strange excitement building inside me. My stepmom had always been somewhat mysterious to me. She was younger than my dad by quite a few years, still in her late 30s, and she carried a youthful energy that made it easy to forget she was technically my stepmother. Now, sitting across from us, watching so intently, she didn't seem like the authority figure I had always thought of her as. There was something different about her in this moment, something that made my pulse race in ways I couldn't fully understand. "I know what it's like to be young," Melissa said, her voice smooth, almost teasing. "You get caught up in the moment, right?" She smiled, and a shiver ran down my spine. There was something about the way she was looking at us that was both unsettling and captivating. I couldn't look away. "Relax," she added, noticing how tense Ryan and I were. "I'm not here to judge." Then she paused, her smile widening slightly. "In fact, I remember what it was like to be in your position." Her words hung in the air, heavy with a meaning I couldn't quite grasp. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. Was she implying what I thought she was? The idea seemed impossible, yet the look on her face suggested she wasn't just talking about understanding our situation. There was something more behind her words. Before I could make sense of it, Melissa stood up and moved toward the couch where Ryan and I were sitting. She moved with a kind of grace I hadn't noticed before, and suddenly she was standing right in front of us, looking down at me with a knowing smile. Ryan tensed beside me, and I wasn't sure if it was from confusion, fear, or the same strange tension that was building within me. "I'll tell you what," Melissa said softly, leaning in a little closer. "Why don't we keep this just between us? No one needs to know what happened here today." I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. Was she serious? Was she really suggesting we act like this never occurred? The idea of keeping something like this a secret was both terrifying and exhilarating, but what other choice did we have? It wasn't like we could tell anyone about this. "And maybe," Melissa added, her voice dropping to a whisper as she leaned in even closer. I could join you too. My breath caught and I stared at her in disbelief. She couldn't mean it, could she? But her expression told me she wasn't joking. There was no misunderstanding here. She was genuinely offering to join us. I looked at Ryan, but he seemed just as stunned as I was. Neither of us knew what to say or how to respond. The room felt suffocatingly small, thick with tension, and before I could even process it, Melissa moved toward Ryan, her hand lightly touching his shoulder. My pulse quickened as I watched, unsure of what to do. Ryan glanced at me, his eyes wide with confusion, but there was something else there too, something that made my stomach tighten with a strange mix of emotions. Everything was happening so fast and I didn't know how to stop it. Did I even want to stop it? Melissa's hand slid down Ryan's arm and I could see how his breath caught in his throat. She was so close now, and the air between us was charged with an energy I couldn't quite explain. It felt like I was watching a dream unfold, everything in slow motion, and I was powerless to intervene, or maybe I didn't want to. Before I could say a word, Melissa leaned in closer, her lips brushing against Ryan's ear as she whispered something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, his eyes widened and the tension between us reached a breaking point. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew one thing: everything had shifted in that moment, and nothing would be the same again. The room felt like it was spinning, and I struggled to wrap my mind around what was happening. Melissa's hand lingered on Ryan's arm, and I could feel the heat radiating from her as she leaned in closer to him. I should have intervened. I should have said something, anything to break the suffocating tension in the room, but I couldn't move. I sat there frozen, as if my body no longer belonged to me. Ryan looked at me, his expression torn between shock and something else, something I couldn't quite place. There was a flicker of excitement in his eyes that twisted my stomach. He was just as confused as I was, but I could tell part of him was intrigued, drawn in by the unexpected turn of events. Melissa pulled back slightly, her hand still resting on Ryan's arm as she glanced at both of us. Her smile was calm, almost reassuring, as if what was happening was the most natural thing in the world. The room was eerily quiet except for the sound of our shallow breathing, and the tension between us was thick enough to cut with a knife. "I can tell you're surprised," she said softly, her voice steady and smooth, "but there's no need to be nervous. We're all adults here, aren't we?" Her eyes flicked between Ryan and me, and I could feel her gaze settle on me, making my skin tingle with both apprehension and curiosity. Ryan shifted beside me, clearly uncertain about what to do next. He looked at me silently, pleading for some kind of guidance, but I had no answers for him. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I should have stopped this. I should have done something. But the thrill of the situation clouded my judgment, making it hard to think straight. Sensing our hesitation, Melissa moved even closer, her hand gliding down Ryan's arm until it rested lightly on his leg. I could see the way his muscles tensed under her touch, and a shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't just a tease anymore, she was serious. "What do you say?" she asked, her voice low and seductive. "No need to be shy. We're just having a little fun, right?" Her smile widened slightly, and I felt the tension in the room intensify. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry, struggling to find words. My mind was spinning, too clouded with conflicting emotions to process clearly. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her to stop, to end this before it went any further. But another part of me, one I didn't fully understand, was curious, tempted by the unknown, by the thrill of the situation. Ryan was still looking at me, waiting for me to make a move. I could tell he was just as conflicted as I was, yet there was a part of him, just like me, that was intrigued by the possibility. The tension between us was almost suffocating, and I could feel the weight of the decision hanging over us. Melissa's hand shifted slightly, her fingers brushing against Ryan's leg in a way that made me catch my breath. She was testing us, pushing the limits to see how far we would let this go, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could resist. My heart raced, my thoughts tangled and confused as I tried to figure out what to do. Before I could say anything, Melissa stood up, her smile steady as she stepped back from the couch. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as if giving us time to process what was happening. "I'll let you both think about it," she said, her voice gentle but full of quiet confidence. "There's no rush. Just know that I'm here if you decide you want me to join." She gave us one last lingering glance before turning and walking toward the stairs, leaving Ryan and me alone in the living room. The silence she left behind was overwhelming. As soon as she was gone, I exhaled, realizing I had been holding my breath. My mind was spinning, my heart still hammering in my chest. I turned to Ryan, and he looked back at me, his eyes wide with both confusion and something else, something I recognized because I felt it too. There was a thrill in the air, a strange excitement from being caught in such an unexpected and surreal situation. Neither of us said a word for what felt like an eternity. The silence between us was heavy, filled with the weight of everything that had just happened. I saw the same uncertainty in Ryan's eyes that I was feeling, but I also saw something else: curiosity, temptation, and attraction we couldn't deny. "What just happened?" Ryan finally whispered, his voice barely audible. His question hung in the air, and I had no answer for him. I didn't know what had happened or what it all meant for us. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same after this. "I don't know," I replied, my voice shaky. I don't know." We sat there for what seemed like hours, the tension still thick between us, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. I couldn't believe that Melissa had walked in on us, seen everything, and then offered to join us. It felt unreal, like something out of a dream, but it was all too real. It had happened, and now we had to figure out what to do next. Ryan shifted beside me, his hand reaching out to gently touch mine. His fingers were warm, and I could feel the slight tremble in his hand, a clear sign that he was just as shaken as I was. I looked at him, and for a brief moment we just stared at each other, the weight of the decision pressing down on us. "I don't know what to do," Ryan admitted softly, his voice filled with uncertainty. I didn't know either. The thrill of what had happened still pulsed through me, but confusion clouded everything. We had crossed into uncharted waters, and I had no idea how to navigate it. But before we could say anything more, we heard the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs. Melissa was returning. My heart raced again, my mind still a whirlwind of emotions as I prepared for what was about to happen. She appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her expression calm and collected, her steps deliberate as she made her way back toward us. This time there was no hesitation. She knew exactly what she wanted, and it was clear she wasn't waiting for us to decide. "Well," she asked, her voice soft but brimming with confidence, "have you made a decision?" I swallowed hard, my thoughts still spinning from everything that had happened. I didn't know how to respond. It was all happening so quickly, and I couldn't think straight. The air around us buzzed with tension that was impossible to ignore. Ryan looked at me again, his face showing uncertainty, but also something else, a reflection of what I was feeling. I could see it, the same thrill, the same temptation that was pulling both of us toward something unknown. We were standing on the edge of something that would change everything. And in that moment I realized that whatever happened next, there would be no going back.